How's it going? My name is Bran. I want to talk about Dead by Daylight. Why do I want to talk about Dead by Daylight? Well, because there's just so much to talk about this game, but I want to talk about one thing in particular, and that's hours. And it's a small thing, but it's something that I see a lot of the time, and it bugs me to no end. I don't know why, but I'm going to try and break down a little bit as to why that might be. If you don't know what Dead by Daylight is, it's an asymmetrical horror game, 4 versus 1. The horror is very loose by definition. It is sort of the Super Smash Brothers of horror games. You get to pick from a plethora of characters, ranging from original to Michael Myers to all sorts of things. It's really cool, and it has just a really fun gameplay loop. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here to talk about hours. And why am I talking about hours? Well, there is just something that bugs me about the perception and the priority that people put on hours in Dead by Daylight. It's this weird thing, right? Because in general, hours should always, almost universally, equate to experience. That's just, if you're thinking that way, good, you should be. It's logical. But logic does not apply to this game sometimes, and I'm going to tell you why. See, in general, the more amount of time you spend on something, the better you're going to be at it. And that applies to most things in life. It applies to learning a language. It applies to learning guitar. It applies to learning any music. Music. In general, learning a skill takes hours. And the more hours you put into it, the better you're going to be at said skill. It makes sense. It just tracks. It just adds up. In Dead by Daylight, it goes a little differently for me. And I just want you to hear me out. I just want you to think about what I'm about to say. And maybe you'll think a little differently about, the emphasis that you put on hours. Because I see content creators, I see friends. This isn't about anyone in particular. I'm sure someone's going to see this and think, oh, he's talking about me, because we've talked about this before. It's not about anyone in particular. I see a lot of people do this. And I don't think you're necessarily incorrect. Okay, I want to preface this. And I also want to say that this is my opinion, my stupid, dumb opinion that doesn't matter to anyone except for me. And if you watch this video, maybe you'll think, oh, hey, I kind of maybe share that opinion too. And if so, awesome. And if not, okay, I don't care. You're allowed to have your opinion. Continue to have it. It's awesome. We need to be more opinionated. Okay, so here's what I'm going to talk about, all right? I think there are sort of, 3 categories of players in the Dead by Daylight pool, all right? You have category A, which is the general player base. And the general player base is made up of people primarily just playing the game to have fun. They're not thinking about the game too intimately. They're not deep diving into what decision-making process they need to do to be the best survivor or killer possible. They're just casually playing the game, because that's really what the game's intention is, to be this fun, asymmetric party game where, you just jump on with your friends, or you jump on alone and you just have a good time. And it's really hard to do that successfully, because when you have 4 people against 1 person, it's really tough to make that balance. And I think Dead by Daylight does it okay. Okay enough to be sort of the only outlier of success in the genre thus far. So when I say the main majority of the player base is in this group A of casual players, I mean that out of the 50,000 to 30,000 daily players, I think a majority of those players aren't really thinking too much about the ins and outs of their play. And I don't think they're really constantly striving to improve. Maybe in micro doses here and there, but I really don't think a lot of people are thinking too much about it. Because at the end of the day, Dead by Daylight is not a complicated game. It's kind of just tag, but a little bit elevated with special powers and little things here and there. And that's important to talk about because, and I'll touch on this later, but there's a skill ceiling to this game, and I think it's pretty low, lower than most games. Now let's talk about Group B, right? Group B is this sort of subsidiary of players who are also not really thinking too strongly about their decision making necessarily, but they think they're really good, and they follow a lot of content creators and they absorb a lot of content but they're not really focused too strongly on the actual improvement portion of play, and they are making kind of incorrect decisions but getting away with things because most killers are not good or most survivors are not good. So they're actually actively doing fine but not necessarily doing well. And so when they actually run into someone who is doing well, they tend to make excuses or they blame the other party. This happens a lot in Dead by Daylight. I'm not sure why it happens so specifically in Dead by Daylight. Maybe it's easier when there's no in-game chat and you could just sort of blanket blame it on the other team, you know? Oh, the killer's so much stronger because it's supposed to be, because it's the killer. Or, oh, the survivors are so much stronger because there's 4 of them and 1 of me. Maybe that makes it easier to put the blame on another side, but I see that a lot. And this is sort of Group B, you know, they'll play well for most of their games because, again, skill levels in this game tend to be on the lower side. That's not a knock at anyone, it's just that kind of game, and that's okay. But they'll coast through most of their games and then get bodied in another game and be like, oh, well, it wasn't me, it was them. It was because they played a certain way or they did a certain thing. And that's sort of this weird mindset, but it's not a good mindset to have, but it's a mindset that a lot of players have. Now, I want to talk about Group C. Group C is the players that just play the game and they want to learn and they want to actively improve their play, and they blame themselves when they make a mistake and they look at what it was that they did and they improve it. And that's so important. And that's actually sort of, I guess, the control group. The control group is going to be Group C because they're the ones that are really actively trying to learn. But I also think this is the smallest group. I think the smallest percentile of players in Dead by Daylight are the ones that are actively trying to improve and kick ass and work their way towards improving their gameplay overall, and looking at what they're doing and maybe even reviewing their footage, maybe sending it to content creators to tell them how they can improve. It's an active process. With all of that being said, why do I think that hours played are not that important, or at least not an indicator of skill? Well, I will tell you why. Because in order to properly improve at a skill, you need to actively be working at improving it and doing so in a correct way. Let's look at Group A, what I think is the majority of the player base. They're not actively trying to improve. Yes, they're going to pick up things here and there and game sense that you otherwise wouldn't pick up normally if you just have 10 hours in a game. But I can almost guarantee you that they are picking up that game sense at 100, 200, 300 hours. Anything beyond that is something that they'll just have with them. And yes, it'll improve in such a minuscule way, but it's not ever going to be to the level that people really put it at. Yes, someone with 100 hours is going to have less game sense than someone with 1,000 hours, but it's really not going to be that much less because they're not actively working to improve that, because they're not paying attention to the little details that improve someone at 1,000 hours, right? That's Group C. Group C at 1,000 hours is going to be destroying people at Group A at 1,000 hours, bar none, but there's no way to tell. Right? There's no way to know which group they come from. And now Group B, which is I think a little bit bigger than Group C, Group B, those players that put the blame on others and they never really look at their own gameplay and they never really question their own decisions, that's actually impairing their ability to learn, right? They're actively making poor decisions and getting rewarded for it. Because this game, it's kind of easy to just loop a killer that doesn't really know what they're doing and route something the wrong way and kind of get away with it and think you're doing really well, which is not really indicative of your performance. It's just sort of a part of the game's design. And where this is an issue for me is a lot of these players will put thousands of hours into this game and never actively improve. In fact, they're actually degrading their gameplay by putting the blame on other people and making poor decisions. And that just actively impairs your ability to learn. It's why I kind of firmly believe that hours are just nonsense in this game. You can have 1,000 hours and make poor decisions and look awful, and if you look at their hours you go, oh my god, 1,000 hours? That doesn't make sense. Of course it doesn't make sense. It's not going to make sense. This game defies the law of logic constantly. There's no rhyme or reason to a lot of the things that people do in this game, or the reason why or how. But I always see people go, wow, you only have like several hundred hours? You play a lot better than that would imply. First off, if you put 100, 200, 300 hours into anything, you should be pretty decent at it. At least moderately. And if most of the people in the game aren't doing what you're doing, which is actively learning, of course you're going to look better by comparison. I put maybe 600 to 700 hours into this game, so I'm not in the 1,000-hour echelon that a lot of people are, but I think that I was better than most people. And that's not being cocky, I promise. That's just my win-loss ratio. I was winning maybe 90% of all games on both sides, and that's not because I'm better. It's because I actively tried to improve my gameplay. I looked at a lot of killer videos. I looked at a lot of survivor videos. I tried to see how I could outplay people using mind games and proper routing. And that goes so far. And this wasn't my win percentage towards the end of my time playing the game. This was 300 hours in. I was winning most games at 300 hours. And it wasn't just because it was matching me with people of similar hours. There is no rhyme or reason to that. You get matched against people with 10 hours at 1,000 hours. It's just the way MMR works in this game. It's because I actively worked to improve my gameplay. And if you're doing that, you will be really good at several hundred hours, because that's the only amount of time it will take. And like I said, the skill ceiling in this game overall is pretty low. You can get really good in a short amount of time and outplay other people in a very short amount of time. And that's why I think hours just don't matter. And again, logically, they should. I agree with that wholeheartedly. They should matter. They really should. But they just don't. Because so many people don't care, or other people are blaming other people, and the amount of people actively trying to improve, it's so low that like you're really just, it's really just tough to find and sort through, and you can't know. So I want you to do something. If you put an emphasis on hours, I want you to do something. I want you to try something. Check literally every person you play hours. Every person you run into, I want you to check their hours and take a look at how many hours they have played, if it's visible, if they're on Steam. Check it out. The numbers will be crazy. They will be all over the place. They will make zero sense to you, because we only check hours played when someone plays really, really bad or really, really good. And yes, more often than not, if they're really awful or if they're really good, those hours are going to potentially represent that. They'll either have 1,000 or they'll have 10. And we only really go out of our way to check those when the gameplay is so crazy that we just have, okay, how many hours does this guy have? That's crazy. But check everyone's hours. They're going to be all over the map. They're going to be everywhere. I think it's important to note that this is one of those games where the player base has been ride or die for a long time. So you're going to, on average, run into people with thousands of hours more so than you're not. I think. I haven't tested this. I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm just ranting because I wanted to make a video today. I wanted to do this for fun. But check out people's hours. I think you're going to notice they're absolutely insane and make no sense, because hours make no sense in this game. Don't worry about people's hours. If they have over 300 and they're actively trying to learn, they're going to play better than you think they are. If they have 1,000 and they're playing like an idiot, it's because this game lets you do that. And that's okay. This should be a game that lets you do that. It's Michael Myers chasing around Ash from Evil Dead. It makes no sense. It doesn't have to make sense. It's goofy and it's fun, and we should just enjoy it. And I think that's really the point of what I'm trying to say. Don't put an emphasis on hours. Don't worry about hours played. Just have fun. And if you're working to improve yourself and you're at 200 hours and someone's saying, oh, you're playing really well for 200 hours, you should feel good about yourself anyway, because it's not your hours played, it's your mentality. Your mentality is what's really driving your improvement. And I promise you, at 200 to 300 hours, you will be destroying people with thousands of hours. I promise you. Yes, there will be a team of people with thousands of hours that actively are competitive and work to improve it, and they're going to destroy you. And that's going to happen. But it is so far and few between in this game. I promise you, you are going to crush it anyway. Just keep on learning, keep adapting, keep on being better. And if you're in Group A, have fun. Just keep playing. You don't have to get better. Again, you're probably winning most of the time anyway, because it's not hard to win. Just have fun, keep having a blast, don't worry about it. If you're in Group B, stop blaming other people, man. Stop doing that. That's stupid. That's lame, and just have fun. Be in Group A, or be in Group C. Group B's for losers. Okay, that's it. I'm done here. Thanks for watching. If you like this, throw it a like, throw it a subscribe. I'm gonna try to do more of these. We'll see. I don't know. It was fun though, right? Did you have fun? I hope you had fun. I had fun. That's for me anyway. All right, bye.